So you talked about the question of black nationalism, and you know, as you well know, the Black Panther Party never took a position that we were a nationalist organization. And the reason that we didn't take that was, it didn't mean that we didn't care about black people, because we always said our primary goal was subjective, and it was the liberation of black people in America. Period. That was our goal. It wasn't to necessarily try to create a nation, because we took the word national very seriously. You had the Republic of New Africa, and you had the Nation of Islam itself attempting to create a physical spot that we could say was our nation. We, the Black Panther Party, and I still maintain this, felt that there was only one reason we wouldn't go along with that concept, even certainly Garvey in many ways, that was impractical. We weren't going to be able to do it, number one. And number two, that we could not coexist with the oppression of other people. That there was a moral as well as a practical question. That how can we talk about the oppression of black people in the face of the oppression of the native indigenous people? And so we said we couldn't. So we helped to form a coalition with the AIM organization, American Indian Movement. And we have poor Leonard Peltier still sitting as a political prisoner in America right now. And we said, how can we talk about our freedom in the face of the oppression of our brown brothers and sisters? And so we formed, not only did we organize with the Brown Berets, but of course we had very close ties to Cesar Chavez and the Farm Workers Farm Workers Movement, United Farm Workers Labor Organization. And same thing with the Young Lords. I was just on a panel the other day with Chacha Jimenez, who was the founder of the Young Lords coming out of Chicago with Fred Hampton. And it was Chacha and Fred Hampton and some others that formed the Rainbow Coalition. Don't get it twisted, because Jesse Jackson and bastardized that term. But the Rainbow Coalition was a coalition of revolutionary people of color, and they even had included whites, because the poor whites in Chicago, especially the very ones who ran King out of Chicago, were still living at the same level of life as black people. Of course, they didn't have our history of slavery. No one can talk to me about that. Amen. You understand? And so, from the black perspective, I just want to mention that. I always said, I had a white woman say to me, young woman, she said, well, you didn't call me sister, you called her sister, and you didn't call me sister, Now, in the big scheme of things, we are all human beings. If we don't believe it, the Human Genome Project has certainly made it clear that, we all have two eyes, and we have our noses here, we don't have wings, we have arms, all sort of stuff that makes us human beings versus birds and dogs and fish or whatever else, right? And the only difference is coloration and, configuration, but basically everybody's within this range of height, this range of weight, basically everybody is the same. So, that said, I consider that being black in America is a political status, as well as I have my own historical roots to it. So when I was asked by this girl, why didn't I call her my sister, I said, well, here's the thing. You don't know what it's like to start out life and every single thing about you is wrong as a black woman. Okay, your hair ain't right, your nose, your ass, your hands, your feet, your breast, your behind. You are ugly from the beginning. And you have to work your way out of that. And why is that important? Because when beauty is the conduit to power, which is the man looking for some beauty, then we have to figure out how to be women and all this other stuff, So when white women back in the day would say to me, well, you're not a feminist, and I've been accused of this many times, I would say, I who am the only woman who headed a paramilitary organization. But anyway, you want to tell me I'm not a feminist? And I'm like, well, you don't have anything to say to my man. That's how I'm going to put it to you bluntly. Okay? I'll criticize his ass over here. That ain't got nothing, because both of us were slaves and you weren't. And you were a participant. You were a participant in what happened to me and to him. And he was your man's bitch as much as, and I was your slave as much as he was. You don't have that 250 years that comes inside of your body and you can't get rid of. You don't even remember that. So don't come to me and talk to me about that common ground. We have a common oppressor. Let's not get it twisted, but we don't have a common history of oppression in America. There was only one group that was enslaved in this country, and that was African people for 250 years. That's the end of that conversation for me. As to my consciousness and the consciousness of the Black Panther Party, the famous picture of Huey with the spear and the gun. So we always were aware of that. But we said we weren't nationalists because we didn't think it was practical and we didn't want to live in isolation. And the other thing is this, you know, you always want to know your friends and know your enemies. Now, if you want to overcome your enemy, then you might have to gather with you friends that you don't like. Nobody ever learned how to speak Spanish in the Black Panther Party, which is a disgrace, actually, you know, to show you how ignorant and dumb we were. But we didn't learn it. We didn't have to because Cha-Cha Jimenez had the Puerto Rican community, right? The Brown Berets had East LA, right? The Young Patriot Party, which is a bunch of group of white boys out of Chicago who are like the young, I call them the what do you call that, the left-leaning Timothy McVeighs. They were strapped crazy and they organized around tenants' rights with blacks. So that you ended up having, they had a breakfast program just like we did, and they had a free breakfast and a hoedown, and I'm not making this up. So they were a part of it. And then we said, how can we talk about our freedom in the face of the oppression of women as a group? And we couldn't. We were the only black organization at that time that issued a statement that women's liberation was a part of our struggle. Not feminism, not Gloria Steinem and her bourgeois feminism, third world, first, aim, second, whatever it is. No, women's liberation, you know. And the bottom line of that was black women in the world are the poorest of the poor, you know. Somebody wants to talk to me about this Stanford woman and abortion. But we all know that she had her, what is the name of the group that Sanford started? Planned Parenthood. That Planned Parenthood was planned to make sure that certain populations didn't have children. As a result, we don't have any, you know, child growth big thing. We have a high infant mortality rate. So we said women's liberation, though, was a part of our struggle because we are half the world, obviously. And the poorest and the bottom of them are black women in Africa and in America, right? We said that how can we talk about our liberation when gays are oppressed? And we were the first organization. You should have seen the black men in the party. They were like, oh, hell no. No. We went along with the Mexican piece, right? We went along with the women's people. We ain't along with no gays. And Huey was like, you know, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm just a plain-born child. Huey Newton said that, quoting somebody, probably Bob Dylan might have been. But anyway, the point is, so we said that. And then we said, what about the people who are locked out of their lives because they are disabled? And we formed a coalition with Ed Roberts and the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley. And we were a part of that group that sat in on the federal building so that you have wheelchair access today. I'm very proud of that part. And how can we talk about our freedom when we're all overwhelmed by the environment and the poison in the air? And we formed a coalition with Huey Johnson and the Trust for Public Land and started a program called Gardens in the Ghetto. And so forth and so on. So we saw all of these things at all of these groups, and when we put everybody together, seniors, for example, remember Gray Panthers, hello, talk about a legacy, Gray Panthers, right? We saw all of these people as a part of that coalition that was going to be the 99%, that was in fact, that we were united, not because we all fell in love and we was all going to be black and we all going to learn to eat Mexican food and speak, you know, go do all these things together. We didn't have to. We had that. We have our own experiences, but we found common ground, and that common ground was in our oppression. And so that was an important part about why we didn't take a position as nationalists. Now, on the Occupy piece, I was there too. I thought I was the only black woman there because they were like, what you doing with all them white people? There's nothing but white people. But the majority of people that were in Oscar Grant Plaza were young black people who were homeless. Nobody wants to deal with that. Didn't you see that?
Yes, I did.
In there smoking all that weed. I'm like, what you doing in this tent, bro? Medical marijuana. What you doing in this tent, bro? I don't have anywhere to live. This is not a joke. Am I making this up?
Oh, you're telling the truth.
I said, well, you see that big building over there? It look like you can hook it up and make some apartments, because that's how we started our free clinic. We just occupied a territory and we take over a building. That was the end of it. That was our building. Who's gonna come there and put us out? So I was with the Occupy thing, and I had that same hope. But the problem with Occupy was just everything. They had no core ideology.
Okay.
You had some people who were like, oh, I don't want this to be a violent movement.
Right.
And the people who occupied that little building, they were violent. What, they killed some windows, right? Remember the people that went into that little, what is it, Kaiser Auditorium or whatever that was, remember? It was in January, right? And they went in there, and I was out there that day, and the police were out there acting a fool. And there was Tom Bates with his wife. What is she? A state senator. What's his wife's name? Come on, somebody. You guys live here in Berkeley, huh? Lonnie Hancock. Telling people to go home. I'm like, what happened to your history? You forgot. Get off the street, Tom, and Lonnie. They got mad at me. They were like, Elaine, how can you be out here like this? I saw this little white girl, like 18 years old on her little bike, and here comes some police. Black, a woman, right? You know, some gay police probably after we done fought all this time for these, but this is what you did with what we fought for. God, I did. Beat this little girl down on the ground. I went crazy. Wow. And because I'm so old and crazy, nobody bothered me. It was like, why, you know? But it was incredible. But the Occupy movement just didn't have a cohesion. But I really saw the hope in it. And if nothing else, I thought they came up with one thing that we all got, and that is, there's a 1% and there's a 99%, and everybody was trying to squeeze out of being 99%. Remember when Newt Gingrich was talking about, I'm not really in the 1%. Newt was trying to be in the 99%. I was like, it's bad when Newt's trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it became unpopular to be in the 1%. So I thought that was another thing. And then the last thing you talked about was fascism. And this is an important word to me, and even though it may seem like an old word and people don't really know, but fascism is when the government and the corporations and the army become one, okay? And gee, I wonder if that's true here. You know, it's like the army operates in the interest of the corporations and the government operates in the interest of the corporations, right? Or the business people, or the people who, and the rest of us are just trying to find our way, be quiet, don't say anything, keep our grants, you know, don't lose my job. You know, I would say something, but I don't want to lose my job, you know. But fascism is absolutely the only word. I would have used that word, but I thought it was a little too crazy. But since you brought it up, I think that is the only description of the state that we're living in now. It may be a kind of, you know, it looks good, you know, it's, you know, so forth and so on. And I want to say just one more thing about Obama, because I tell all the black people that I know if Obama looked like Clarence Thomas, y'all wouldn't have voted for him, okay? So let's go there. There's a whole... Am I right or wrong? Let's tell the truth. People are like, oh, he is so far, you know, ain't too black, you know what I mean? So I think that's something, even though everybody kind of like went along with, you know, Michelle was his wife, and they were like just happy he was married to a black woman, especially people in the Bay Area. But anyway, somebody missed that line. But anyway, I threw that away fast. But my point being that, you know, we went for that because we were looking for anything, you know, we're looking for a savior, looking for a messiah even, and we thought that he was that person, or that he could be, or that we didn't look into his history and we didn't look into anything. I mean, when I look at Rahm Emanuel, I knew we were dead. You know, this was like Zionist he was like #1 Zionist on the planet, and I'm not big on calling everybody a Zionist just because they happen to be Jewish. That's not who I am. But I'm telling you, this man is a Zionist. His father was one of the founders and one of the generals in the Verdun, whatever it is. I forgot what the name of it was, a Israeli or Jewish gang that the New York Times at the time denounced as a terrorist organization. That his father, and he was named after one of the heroes of that movement that took over Palestine. And so Rahm Emanuel is not somebody to be played with. You know, now he's the mayor of Chicago. Hello. So yeah, those are to respond to your things. I think these are really important things for us to think about, you know, in terms of big ideas that we should have. Well, we got